The war zone was far behind them now, or so they thought. In the quiet corners of a small military base hospital, Nurse Emma blended in like any other medical staff member. Soft-spoken, always calm, and often seen with a clipboard in hand, she moved through her shifts without drawing attention. No one ever questioned where she came from or what her past held. To most, she was just the quiet nurse who always seemed to know what to do in a crisis. But no one really knew her. Not yet. That all changed one night when chaos hit without warning. An emergency alert came through 18 soldiers critically wounded in a surprise roadside attack. Their convoy had been ambushed, and they were being airlifted in with life-threatening injuries. The small hospital wasn't ready. Doctors were off duty, supplies were limited, and the team was short-staffed. Panic began to set in. No one knew how they were going to handle it all. That's when Emma stepped forward. Without hesitation, she started barking orders clear, sharp, and filled with authority. It caught everyone off guard. Her voice, once so soft, now carried the weight of someone who had seen real combat. She grabbed equipment, organized triage, and even guided junior medics through emergency procedures they'd never done before. It wasn't just that she knew what to do, it was how she moved, how she worked, how she kept those soldiers alive under pressure in that moment. The team realized Emma wasn't just a nurse. She was something else entirely, someone trained for war, someone who had lived through it. A former combat medic with a past no one had bothered to ask about. But where had she served? What had she seen? And why had she kept it hidden? As the last helicopter landed and fresh chaos spilled through the doors, one thing became clear: Emma's story was just beginning. And the truth behind the quiet nurse was far more powerful than anyone ever imagined. Before Emma ever wore the soft blue scrubs of a nurse, she had worn the dusty fatigues of a combat medic in one of the most dangerous zones overseas. She wasn't just trained, she had survived ambushes, field surgeries, and long nights where saving a life meant using whatever she had in her backpack. But no one at the base hospital knew any of this. Emma had transferred quietly, kept to herself, and never spoke of her past. When people asked, she simply said she had done field work. That was enough for most. But the way she moved that night, focused, steady and unshaken, it was clear she'd been here before. Blood, screaming, chaos. It didn't shake her. She worked like someone who had already faced death and won. The younger nurses watched her in disbelief, following her lead as if she'd always been in charge. Some of the doctors, at first unsure, quickly stepped back and let her run point. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She was just doing what needed to be done. As the hours passed and more wounded soldiers were rushed in, rumors started to spread. "Did you see her treat that chest wound?" one whispered. "She did it faster than a trauma surgeon." Another replied, "I think she used to be special forces or something." But no one knew for sure. Her file had been light. Just the basics. No medals displayed. No stories told. In the break room between patients, one of the senior medics quietly asked her, "Where did you learn all that?" Emma simply looked down at her hands for a moment, still stained with dried blood, and answered, "Somewhere far from here." But the questions were piling up, and the calm mask she wore was starting to crack. Whatever she was running from, it hadn't stayed behind. It had followed her here. And it was only a matter of time before her past would catch up with her. Over the next few days, Emma returned to her usual quiet self, but something had shifted. People looked at her differently, now like she was some kind of mystery they hadn't noticed before. Nurses who once ignored her now watched her closely, hoping to learn something. Some even whispered behind her back, trying to guess what she had been through. Emma didn't feed any of it. She kept her head down, worked her shifts, and avoided small talk. But deep down, she knew the questions weren't going away. One night, after finishing a long shift, Emma found a note tucked into her locker. No name, just 5 words. "We served together, I remember." Her hands went cold as she stared at it. She hadn't told anyone where she had been deployed or with whom. Only a few people would know. People she hadn't seen in years. People she'd rather never see again. Meanwhile, one of the wounded soldiers, Private Reyes, was still in recovery. He had been unconscious during the worst of the triage, but now asked about the woman who saved him. The quiet nurse, he called her. She knew what she was doing, like she'd done it 100 times before. Reyes kept pushing, asking around, trying to find out more. Not out of suspicion, but respect. But his questions started stirring up attention in the wrong places at the same time. Dr. Langford, the hospital's chief of surgery, started digging into Emma's file. He wasn't trying to expose her, but the night of the attack had made it clear they needed more people like her. Combat medics with real battlefield experience. Yet the deeper he looked, the more gaps he found. Deployment dates missing, units blacked out. 1 entire year unaccounted for. Classified or buried. Something didn't add up. And just as Emma thought she could go back to blending in, someone from her past, someone she had hoped was gone for good, showed up on base, not in uniform, not as a soldier, but as a patient. Emma froze the moment she saw him. He was older now, thinner, with a scar running from his temple down to his jaw. There was no mistaking who he was. Sergeant Kyle Mercer. Once her commanding officer, now lying unconscious on a gurney in the trauma bay. A routine transport had gone bad in IED outside the city perimeter, just like before. The past, it seemed, had a way of circling back. As the other staff rushed to stabilize him, Emma stood at the edge of the room, hands clenched at her sides. She hadn't seen Mercer in years, not since the mission that had nearly ended both their lives. The mission that had gone wrong, very wrong. And while the reports had been buried, Emma had never forgotten. Neither the decisions made nor the silence that followed. Dr. Langford noticed the shift in her face. "You know him?" he asked quietly. Emma nodded once, but offered no more. She jumped into action, helping with the emergency surgery, her hands moving automatically. But her mind raced. If Mercer woke up and what would he say? Would he expose what happened during that mission? Would he mention what she had done? Or worse, what he had covered up? Meanwhile, Private Reyes, still recovering, caught wind of Mercer's arrival. He was piecing things together slowly. The stories didn't line up. Emma's skills, her reaction, the classified gaps in her record. And now this man showing up. From her past. He wasn't asking questions out of curiosity anymore. He was starting to worry for her. That same night, Emma found another note. Slid under her door. "You can't hide forever." No signature, just those 5 words. Again, her heart pounded. Someone knew, someone was watching. And as Mercer's condition stabilized, Emma realized the clock was ticking. Because when he woke up, the truth, whatever it was, wouldn't stay buried anymore. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat at the edge of her bunk, staring at the note in her hand. The words echoing louder than they should have. "You can't hide forever." Her past wasn't just catching up, was closing in. And now, with Mercer in recovery, unconscious but alive, it felt like the calm before a storm she couldn't stop. But the next morning brought something even more unexpected. As she walked into the hospital wing, a group of military investigators stood near the front desk. Not medical staff, not base security. These were high-level, clean uniforms, no small talk. One of them was holding a sealed folder, her name on the tab. Emma didn't flinch, but her stomach dropped. She knew this wasn't a coincidence. Wasn't about Mercer's injuries. It was about something bigger. Something she thought had been buried along with that mission. At the same time, Dr. Langford pulled her aside. "Emma, I didn't want to believe it, but someone's trying to reopen the investigation into Operation Hammerfall," he said carefully. The name hit like a punch to the chest. Operation Hammerfall wasn't just any mission, it was the one that changed everything. A mission where lives were lost, orders were disobeyed, and choices were made that haunted her every day since. But the twist came when Langford added, "They think someone survived who wasn't supposed to. Someone who saw what really happened. That wasn't Mercer. It was someone else, a witness. And if that person was alive, the truth could unravel everything, not just Emma's career, but her freedom." Private Reyes, still watching from the sidelines, had his own theory. He began digging deeper, quietly pulling whatever base records he could access, and what he found only made things worse. A name, a classified case file, photograph of Emmett taken the day after the mission ended, standing next to someone who had been listed as killed in action. The lies were unraveling fast. And now, Emma wasn't just fighting to protect her past. She might have to face someone she thought was long gone. Emma stood outside Mercer's room, heart pounding like it had on that last day in the desert, the day everything went sideways. Inside, he was finally awake, conscious, alert. The military investigators were waiting too, ready to ask him questions they'd waited years to dig into. But Emma knew they wouldn't get the answers they were expecting. She stepped in first, quietly, before the others. Mercer turned his head slowly, his face bruised, but his eyes